Efendim herkese günaydın. Sadik Aydin, Cumhurbaşkanlığı Strateji ve Bütçe Başkanlığı'nda görev yapıyorum. Şahsım ve başkanlığımız adına hepinizi saygıyla selamlıyorum. Müsaade ederseniz bu kısa Türkçe selamlama konuşmasından sonra konuşmamı İngilizce devam etmek istiyorum ki belki birazcık daha ilgiyi, takibi artırmış olalım. Good morning, all, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to welcome you all. It is a great pleasure for me to deliver this keynote speech at this very important summit. I would like to thank Boğaziçi University Business People Alumni Association, Istanbul International Center for Private Sector in Development, and UNDP for the arrangements of this panel. Today, we will be discussing charting a new course for the business world, UN Sustainable Development Goals. I would like to start first with stressing the importance of private sector in reaching SDGs. Later, I will try to explain what the government of Turkey has been doing in this issue so far. As everyone in here can agree, we live in a world where we have to develop collaborations to reach our goals. Having aimed, no one is left behind. The SDG agenda also needs partners. Considering limited public budgets, it is vital to find various ways to mobilize different financial resources and develop new financing models to fulfill SDG goals. According to the 2017 World Investment Report, published by United Nations Conference on Trade and Development, at current levels of investment, developing countries alone face an annual gap of $2.5 trillion for reaching the SDGs. The developing or the least developed countries need the investments most, but do not have the necessary budget or most of the capacity. According to the 2017 Better Business and Better World report of the Business and Sustainable Development Commission, sustainable business models could open economic opportunities worth up to $12 trillion. It's a huge money. And increase employment by up to 380 million jobs in developing countries by 2030. This report addresses a market opportunity of $12 trillion in 4 economic areas: food and agriculture, cities, energy and materials, health and well-being. These figures shows us existence of both opportunity and financing needs for the markets, where private sector is definitely a key actor. Private sector can promote innovative solutions for development challenges, become an engine of technological development and innovation. It can also provide sustainable and affordable goods and services. Thus, it can support economic growth, social inclusion, and environmental protection in line with the Agenda 2030. It is important that the governments make policies in accordance with the respective socio-economic conditions of the country and guidance on potential investment opportunities for the private sector to foster sustainable development. Besides, incentives should be developed for the companies in order to facilitate their access to large and promising new markets. I would like to continue with what the government of Turkey has been doing in this regard. Strategy and Budget Office, which is a newly created office, is the coordinator institution for SDGs in Turkey. As part of our coordinator role for SDGs, we have done a stock-taking analysis and a mapping of SDGs for determining the interlinkages. As part of our analysis, we see great potential for private sector involvement for the SDGs, particularly the first one for the SDG 6 on clean water and sanitation, SDG 7 on affordable and clean energy, especially for renewable energy and energy efficiency, SDG 9 on industry, innovation, and infrastructure, including development of clean production technologies with high added value, digital infrastructure, R&D, and last but not the least, SDG 11 on sustainable cities and communities, covering wastewater treatment, access to housing and basic services, urban transportation, and disaster resilience. We see private sector is the primary actor for achieving SDGs, and we are working directly with private sector organizations for tweaking our policies towards reaching these goals. Our partnership with business organizations like TÜSİAD, MÜSİAD, and others will determine major gaps for reaching targets, relevant means of implementation, and expectations of private sector for supporting this process. Moreover, Turkey is one of the 22 countries that presented voluntary national review during the first high-level political forum in 2016 after the adoption of SDGs, and will present its second voluntary national review in 2019, next year. The second VNR, the review process, will be prepared with a participatory approach. In this regard, we are giving utmost importance to the views of private sector, and we will reflect their contribution to the VNR. As a second area, Turkey is heavily and effectively using private sector participation in its way of reaching sustainable development goals, especially in terms of public-private partnerships, PPPs. In the last 10 years, the investment amount of PPPs have been $50 billion in 132 projects. To incentivize private sector, tax exemptions, international arbitration, step-in rights are regulated in PPP-related legislation. Our most significant initiative in terms of recognizing private sector's role in development is the establishment of the Istanbul International Center for Private Sector in Development, which is a co-organizer of this panel. In 2011, as a joint visionary initiative here in Istanbul, Turkish government established the center with UNDP. It demonstrates our significant efforts in pioneering for private sector engagement to the SDG agenda. As a global entity, the center has a special mandate for focusing on the role of the private sector in development. Okay, how the center realizes all these aims that we have talked about? It supports private sector companies or governments through research, inclusive business advocacy, public-private dialogue facilitation, and partnership brokering. The center's works cover inclusive business models, role of the private sector in skills development, impact investment, private sector resilience, and crisis response. Impact investment is another evolving concept, and largely more private stakeholders are expected to come in that route. Of course, all responsibility cannot be loaded on private sector's shoulders. But once again, to indicate the importance of partnerships, public-private, multinational development banks, and NGOs all have to act together, and private sector is the indispensable part of the way going to the SDGs. Impact investing is investing that aims to generate specific beneficial social or environmental effects along with the financial gains, as usual. The center has also been working on impact investment with a specific focus on Islamic finance, which is a strong but untapped source to finance the SDGs. Turkey has great potential in this area, especially in terms of renewable energy. Since the center is the only one UNDP entity engaging private sector, it is hosting different global platforms. As I mentioned earlier, we value the works and efforts of the center. Its foundation rationale is based on the need to support both the private sector and foundations to become transformative partners in development so that they can broaden their contribution beyond social responsibility in development issues. I personally believe the role of the center is important as a global focal point to provide a roadmap for private sector. Before ending my words, I am looking forward to hear your views, policy proposals, and expectations from governments stepping in to achieve this inspirational agenda and changing the way of doing business. I thank you all very much.
Thank you so much. We would like to present another gift for you. And I would like to invite Mr. Cengiz Özgencil to the lectern to present the honor gift.